Good morning. Today is the 24th of May. Yes, I have had a haircut, viewers, and it's time for yet another not particularly interesting, very vague, and probably quite boring vlog. So we've been on the road again this week, doing a job for a client. I actually calculated yesterday that the gentleman in question, he's recommended me for 7 different jobs over the years. I first did a job for him in 2018. He didn't actually keep the car very long because somebody hit it and wrote it off, which was a shame. But he was just about to move abroad at the time, so it didn't really matter in the end. And he got more insurance paid out than he paid for the car. So I think he got slightly more, actually. Yeah, he did get more. So it wasn't the end of the world. And, many, many years later, he asked me to find him another car. A growing family was the reason. The car that he had is one of my favourite cars I've ever actually tested. A Seat Leon ST from the previous generation. I really, really liked the previous generation Leon ST. Tested one on the channel many, many years ago in 2019. And last year I actually sourced one. All 3 of these cars were in FR trim. They were all about, I think, 2016, all 3 of them. This was a different colour from the other 2, though. And, it's a decent car. I had it a little while. But with an expanding family, it's not necessarily the most practical for everybody. So this was the brief to replace it. The budget was actually quite good. It's one of the most generous budgets I've worked with for a long time. And actually what it meant is one of the cars we test drove was a 2023. I think that's the newest car I've ever driven in, well, my entire sort of career for a client. I have driven brand new ones before, very occasionally, but this is the first time I've driven a 2023 car in that sort of course of my business. So a whole range of stuff came up. So we needed 7 seats. We didn't want the car to be too big. And it had to be a petrol, of course, with a manual gearbox. And so that's quite a lot of cars. I thought it would be difficult and there wouldn't be enough. I didn't want an SUV, so you'd think that would be quite limited, but actually it wasn't. All sorts of things were sort of in consideration. First car we saw was a 2023 Dacia Jogger, a 1-litre manual in the extreme trim. I couldn't believe actually that Dacia Joggers were going to be kind of anywhere near a search like this, but they were, because they weren't very expensive when they were new. Obviously the price has gone up a little bit. It just so happened in 2023 I tested the extreme model with the newer logo on it, I think, with the hybrid powertrain, which is a bit more expensive than the 1-litre manual. But the client wanted a manual gearbox, which is fine. Some people like manuals, some people like automatics. So managed to find him one. I went to see it. The car had done, it's a 2023 on a 72 plate. It had done 42,000 miles. It was at the original supplying dealer, where it had been serviced and everything, and it was fine. There was one thing I noticed with the Jogger. I don't know if this is going to be a problem in the future with them, but after 42,000 miles, the gearbox was really floppy. It was not alarmingly so, but I was like, well, this car is just over 2 years old and it's done 42,000 miles. The gearbox is already floppy. That doesn't really necessarily bode well for the future. So, yeah, that's the only thing I could see wrong with it. There are a couple of cosmetic marks on it, but the main issue actually was, and this is a surprising thing for me, because when I tested one of those in 2023, I found it to be a very, very spacious car, but with the 2 child seats in it and an adult sitting in the middle of the middle row, it wasn't actually that big. I mean, if you wanted to have somebody in the front, now bear in mind my client's very tall, he's about 6'4", so him sitting in the front passenger seat with the child seat behind him, he had virtually no headroom and virtually no legroom. So that was a bit of a problem. But then we came on to another problem. The car drove absolutely fine, actually, considering it's only got 110 horsepower. It drove absolutely fine. I was quite surprised. It was pretty nippy, really. So we finished the test drive, and I said, please, can I see the V5? And the sales manager said to me, what do you mean you want to see the V5? I said, that's what I normally do. He said, it's got customer detail all over it. I can't show you that. I said, what about the service history? He said, no, we don't service it, it's fine. I was like, right, so this is a franchise dealer for Alpine, Renault and Dacia. I was like, okay, what, do I never get to see the V5? And he said, no. I said, right, I mean, okay, well, some dealerships do show it to you. I mean, some don't, but if that's what your policy is, I suppose that's fine then. So we left and feeling like, well, maybe we won't buy that car then. The sales manager doesn't seem particularly keen on, something I've obviously offended him somehow. Anyway, so we went on to the next car, which is a 2018 Ford S-Max. I don't know an awful lot about these cars, to be honest. One of the reasons we looked at it was because my client's lady wife actually had one of these in the family, and so we thought, okay, well, that's what I'm looking at. This was, I think, around the £15,000 mark, and it was a 1.5 turbo titanium manual with 32,000 miles on the clock. So you'd think actually that's quite a lot of money, and it is, but it's quite low mileage. The titanium is a very good specification. Biggest problem with the car was that for some reason it was, I think, 158 horsepower, but it didn't feel very fast. I don't know why. I think they're quite heavy cars, the S-Maxes. Obviously the Galaxy, but to a sister car, even heavier. And it was fine. There were a few sort of cosmetic imperfections on it, and by that stage I'm pretty sure the timing belt needs replacing, because it's a 7-year-old car, an 18. And I think Ford say the cam belts are 6 years old, whether mileage it is. So I obviously asked about whether the cam belt had been done. I can't remember if it had been or not, but the thing was that it just feels a little too big. It felt a bit too like a bus. It didn't seem that quick somehow. I don't know why. Maybe you need to really work the engine to make the most of those 158 horses. So that was fine. That was good. And then the next one we saw was a 2020 BMW Grand Tourer. I think it was a 218i SE, so it's the base model for that specification. Again, a manual, so 1.5 3-cylinder mini engine. Now, this isn't anyone's fault or anything, but when we got there, we found out that the car had a flat battery and we weren't going to be able to drive it. BMWs, of course, for some reason, have batteries that are complicated. Particularly, this is like a 2020, so it'll be a stop-start model, and so they didn't have the battery fitted to the car and programmed to the car. Which is what you have to do with BMW. You've got to program a battery to the car. I think other makes as well. So we didn't actually drive it, but I'm not sure they were that keen on the fact that the car was actually broken when we got there. So that wasn't very good. So next we went on to see a 2017 Volkswagen Touran. And the Touran, I think, was probably the car that they said maybe their favourite of all of them. So this was a very nice specification one. It was a SEL. The current generation Touran, at the moment, is the same as this 17 plate model, although it's been facelifted. And it just got everything. It's got absolutely everything. If it didn't have heated seats, it's got everything. It would be nice to see one with a sunroof, but you kind of everything. Again, about 32,000 miles, like the S-Max, and immaculate. One owner from new. Bizarrely, the sales consultant not only showed me the V5, he also proudly gave me the name of the owner in the initial phone call, which was about as different as you could possibly imagine from the previous treatment at the Dacia dealership, which was very, very strange. I don't quite know what was going on in that respect. But yeah, I couldn't really find anything wrong with it. The only thing is, it's a 2017 car and it's £15,000. It's a lot of money. I mean, that's actually what they're worth. Tourans, if they're nice, do not hang around very long. They just don't. For some reason, they are like the darlings of the second-hand car market at the moment. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it's a nice car, nice specification, 1.4 TSI manual, with the upgraded sat-nav screen as well. So it looked nice. You can use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all kinds of things. Yeah, so service history was all there. For some reason, it had a new gearbox sensor or something like that, I think, or something along those lines, which is strange. It's a manual, so presumably that's needed for something. So not necessarily always reliable, especially given the mileage. But yeah, one owner, full Volkswagen service history. And so, yeah, so they quite liked it. They went on to see a Zafira Tourer. Now, I like Zafira Tourers. They are phenomenally good value for money. The only thing I say to people who buy Zafira Tourers, I only source petrol cars, and the majority of the petrol Zafira Tourers are the 1.4 turbo engine, which doesn't necessarily have the best reputation. I think they're okay, but obviously they can have problems. So I always say to people when they buy one, keep some money to one side in case there are any problems with this engine. I have heard about it. It's not inevitable or anything. Just keep some money to one side just in case you do have any issues, and you should be okay. In this instance, because we've got a very generous budget, it's actually quite hard to find a Zafira Tourer for over £10,000. It's quite hard. Like, this is the one we saw was an 18 registration, and it was under £10,000. In fact, it was probably a little bit highly priced, to be honest. It was a bit too expensive. But compared with everything else we saw, particularly when you consider the Tourer was older, it was crazy. But that's what it's like. Vauxhalls always have been a bit like that. This is the last of the Zafira Tourers. They've discontinued in 2018. A 1.4 turbo energy model. It's not the most exciting specification, especially in like a grey colour. It wasn't too bad, but the thing is, we'd already seen the Tirana at that stage, and that's a much more highly specified car with this sort of bright colour, and of course it's got the badge on it. And often people just like buying cars because of the badges, which is fine. Like, but that's not a problem. I will source whatever somebody wants me to source within reason. So that was okay. The car, to be honest, was in pretty good condition. It was an ex-Motability car that had been supplied by the same dealer to someone else who then part exchanged it against something else. So, and it was in pretty good condition. I think he'd done 48,000 miles, which is nothing really. I think it had a thermostat or something like that, which is fine. Maybe that's common on those engines. Apart from that, it seemed okay. I mean, like, that was a perfectly decent car to buy if you were looking for something for under £10,000. If you're looking at £15,000, you want the absolute best and you prefer it, then obviously the Volkswagen for them is better. So that's what we went for. Obviously, I couldn't believe how much you had to pay for one of those, and it's very strange about the whole V5 service history situation. In fact, that you've got two franchises. It's not like one's an independent, one is a franchise one. You've got two franchise dealers who have completely different policies about data protection. One of them who will not show you the V5, will not show you the service history, and one who actually tells you who the previous owner was in the initial conversation and will happily show you all the service history that you want. I mean, I prefer the second approach personally. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. Maybe let me know in the comment section below. But there we go, another car sourced, and life on the road once again. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and we shall see you again very soon for some more very vague and not particularly interesting music.